What's up, y'all? What's good? Welcome to the What Up Doe Show. It's your boy Dame D, and I am back with another one. Today, we're going to be talking about how unjust the justice system is for blacks. And I'm gonna wait for a few people to chime in before I get to this audio and video that I have queued up that I'm going to play. But yeah, it's unfortunate how the justice system is unjust for most blacks. We're going to talk about that for a little bit. I have a video that I'm going to show, and then I have a little commentary that I'll do after the video. So I'm gonna wait for a few people to chime in, and then I'll get to the video. But yeah, and this is nothing new. Everyone knows this. You know how unjust the justice system is for most African Americans who face the justice system in this country. For the most part, we're not treated equally, we're not treated fairly, when it comes to the justice system. And it's been proven, case after case after case, as we see a lot of these cases go, in front of us on TV, unjustified, like with a lot of homicides that, the police officers get away with, unjustified, I should say. So I'm just waiting on a few people to chime in and check in, and I'm going to check my audio to make sure that you guys can hear me. Yep. So give me a second. I'm gonna say it's Tuesday night, but it's is it after 12? Yeah, so it's Wednesday morning, so it's not Tuesday anymore. Okay, here we go. So I'm just gonna check my audio to make sure you guys can hear me. Okay, here we go. So I'm just gonna check. Okay, oh, all right, I can be heard. So yeah, so I'm just gonna wait on a few more people, on a few people to check in before I start showing this video, about how unjust the justice system is for most blacks. So yeah, so I'll go on ahead and start the video. I got a few people in here watching. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, please go over there and hit that subscribe button. Helps out the channel, helps the channel grow. But yeah, we're going to talk about how unjust the justice system is for blacks. I have audio and video that I'm going to be playing of Taylor House Publishing. He broke the video down, pretty good. So I'm just going to, give him his credit and just do for the video. And I want to say fair use. I'm using this video for for purposes and entertainment purposes, and I forget the other word, but fair use. But give me 1 second, I have everything queued up. Yeah, for entertainment and educational purposes, I should say. So hold on, give me 1 second. I don't know why they ain't got. So hold on, it look like I'm gonna have to go find. Hopefully this is it. So give me 1 second. Let me find out. That's not it. All right, so hold on. I gotta go find the video. I gotta go plug it in somewhere. So hold on, let me back up. I gotta go to my history and find this. So yeah, give me a second, guys. It's definitely in my history because I was just looking at it. I don't know why I didn't have it queued up. Okay, here it is. So I'll be able to get to it. All right, here we go. Okay, here we go. So let me go ahead and share it with you guys. Hold on. All right, here we go. So let me get my face back into the picture so you guys can see me. The hell? Hold on. Let me pause this. I don't know why it's, hold on, give me 1 second, guys. I'm gonna have to start this all over because for some reason. Let me pause this and then I'm gonna come back out because I gotta get back to my screen because somehow. Okay, so let me get back into this. Hold on, give me 1 second. Okay, now I'm gonna start it over. Okay, here we go.
Thing happened. This is a bar 10 here in Midtown. The officer's attorney says he's the victim in this case, but the witnesses who said the officer should have went to jail.
It was terrifying.
All right, there we
spoke to
go.
several witnesses who saw what happened here at bar 10 in Midtown late Saturday night into Sunday morning. They're afraid to go on camera.
And fair use, I'm using this for educational and entertainment purposes.
Attack a bar worker, and when police arrived, they arrested the worker, who goes by Ray. His real name is Raphael Penrice.
He's such a nice guy.
And remember that name, Ray.
Everyone feel very safe, and I think it's absolutely heinous that after several eyewitnesses told the arresting officers that it was in fact the off-duty police officer that threw the first punch, that he was still the one to be taken to jail.
Witnesses told us it all started when Atlanta police officer Garrett Rolfe's friend accused a bartender of overcharging for drinks. They started arguing, and when the bar worker, Ray, tried to escort the officer and his friend outside, multiple witnesses say the officer attacked Ray. This is the same officer who shot and killed an unarmed black man, RASHARD Brooks, back in 2020. It's been 5 years since Garrett Rolfe shot RASHARD Brooks here at what used to be Wendy's, but you can see people are still freshly spray painting his name. And across the street, there's a sign that says R.I.P. RASHARD. Officer Rolfe is now on paid leave for this new investigation. His attorney said, "My client is a victim. He'll be fully cooperating with this investigation." The bar owners are determined to bail out their employee once bond is posted, and they're going to clear their employee's name.
This man was just doing his job. He watches the door and he makes everybody feel safe. I just can't believe that this has unfolded the way that it has. It's honestly scary that law enforcement can do this.
I dare you to let me build you a completely free e-commerce store preloaded with 20.
Now, the worker, Raphael Penrice, is still in jail right now. He's facing 4 charges, 2 counts of simple battery and 2 counts of assault. And his employer said they're working on getting him out, and they're going to do everything they need to do to clear their worker's name. We'll stay on this story. We're live here in Midtown. Taisha Fernandez, Channel 2 Action News.
I'm sure it will only be a matter of time, Taisha, before we hear from that worker. Thank you.
All right. Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings. All praises to the Most High. And you heard the news story about Garrett Wolfe, who has already killed 1 black man. You may remember RASHARD Brooks back in 2020. I'm going to show you that video in a few minutes. But this officer has already killed 1 black man, and now he's assaulting another black man while off duty at a bar.
And most of us thought that this man was still being charged with this murder, you know, but
just out doing his job trying to feed his family. And you heard the reporter say that, you know, the officer and his friend accused him of overcharging for drinks, and he escorted him outside. That's when witnesses say, and you heard them say, several witnesses said that the officer threw the first punch and probably you know, tried to beat on him, but evidently probably
Ray put them hands on him.
Put them hands on him.
Right.
And that's why he was the one taken to jail and the officer was not. And You hear the lawyer saying that his client is the victim. How so? Once again, it's almost like the brother Trevor Moses down there in Louisiana when the white man hit him and he put them hands on the white man. He put the hands on the white man so much that the white man fell, bumped his head, and then he died. Now, Trevor Moses is facing a murder charge. Now, as Malcolm always say, if you're not careful, the media will have you thinking that the victim is the criminal. The victim in this case is Raphael, and you saw his mugshot because they took him to jail. And the criminal, which is the officer, he is off with paid leave and not even went to jail. Now, if you don't remember in 2020, the case of RASHARD Brooks down at the Wendy's in Georgia, I'm going to show you this.
So once he showed this video, I'll get back to my commentary
of how this officer, once again playing the victim, took this black man's life.
And this is the body cam video of when Officer Garrett Rolfe first approached RASHARD Brooks at the Wendy's on University Avenue last night around 10:30. Police were called there after reports of a man who was parked in the drive-thru had fallen asleep. You can see Officer Rolfe asking Brooks a few questions before he took a field sobriety test. The GBI says when Brooks failed the test, there was a struggle over the taser between Brooks and the officers. We're only going to show you a portion of the video. Again, a warning, this video is disturbing.
You know, and it's pretty much the same old when it comes to, you know, black men being approached and being handled by, you know, any police department. You know, it's always the same outcome. You know, and I remember this case clearly.
Stop fighting!
And we want you to compare that to the surveillance video that was released from the Wendy's camera earlier this afternoon. And by this afternoon, I actually mean Saturday afternoon. The days are running together right now. You can see Brooks in this video running across the parking lot with an officer following him. A lot of the other cars in the parking lot still when all of this unfolded. And his car, just from the view from the Atlanta police body camera footage, shows that his car is actually to the left of the footage that we're seeing here. So this video only captures the moment where we saw Mr. Brooks actually running with the officer after him. Again, a lot of cars still in the drive-thru at the time all of this unfolded and the shots went off.
All right. So then again, there again is the footage from 5 years ago of the officer once again claiming the victim as the black man is running away with the taser. Now, we don't know if that footage was doctored or not, but he shot RASHARD Brooks. There was a lot of outrage. People in the community actually are still recognizing his death, as you saw the numerous memorials and commemorations of his life, even around that Wendy's still. Now, that officer was originally indicted, I think, on, murder charges. But of course, about a year later, the charges were dropped. It was ruled that, he acted lawfully, and then he was reinstated. But even before then, in 2016, he had several complaints of use of excessive force. Now, after that shooting, he was reinstated, and here he is again, acting violently
back to the same
against
acts.
Black people. And so, as many people have asked in that news article, why is he still on the force? Ask yourself, why is he still on the force? But more or less, why did he not go to jail after assaulting that man who was just doing his job? Now, I'm going to show you a little bit more of his past and how he eventually came to beat that charge and be reinstated to further terrorize and assault Black people, especially this man who was just doing his job.
The family of RASHARD Brooks, who was fatally shot by a former Atlanta police officer, says they're disappointed and confused after the officer got reinstated. Garrett Rolfe was fired shortly after the shooting Brooks in a Wendy's parking lot last June in Atlanta. Ryan Young reports You remember that the incident was captured on body cam and it sparked new protests in the city?
Installers who frequently drill
Okay, hold on, let
holes
me
should
come out
try the
and
popular Wu steel 4-blade sawtooth
skip
drill
this.
bit. It features an interlocking.
It started when an officer responded to a call about a man sleeping in a car in the drive-thru at a Wendy's in Atlanta. The officer's body camera and dash cam videos showed them talking to RASHARD Brooks for more than 20 minutes, after which authorities say Brooks failed a sobriety test. One of the officers tried to arrest him, and things escalated.
I think you've had too much to drink to be driving. Put your hands on your back, boy.
The footage shows a struggle. Brooks grabbing one of the officer's tasers and firing it as he runs away. That's when Officer Garrett Wolf opens fire. 2 shots hit Brooks, killing him. In the wake of the shooting, 2 weeks after the death of George Floyd, there are days of violent unrest in Atlanta, including the arson of Wendy's.
See, I remember this clearly.
Atlanta's mayor used her executive authority to call for the officer to be fired the day after the shooting.
I do not believe that this was a justified use of deadly force and have called for the immediate termination of the officer.
The mayor also tried to comfort Brooks' family.
I do hope that you will find some comfort in the swift actions that have been taken today.
But that swift firing, which led to turmoil in the police department, resulting in mass call-outs of officers, is at the center of Rolfe's fight to get his job back. During a hearing last week, his attorney, Lance LaRusso, pled his case.
We are here challenging the gross violation of the ordinances, policies, and due process that were committed by the city of Atlanta.
This morning, the city's Civil Service Board announced that they had voted to reinstate the officer based on the procedural issues during his firing. LaRusso told CNN after the decision that he and his client are very excited with the outcome and hope to get Wolf back to work soon. But the city police department says the 27-year-old will be on administrative leave as he faces 11 charges, including felony murder. That case, though, remains in limbo, as the newly elected Fulton County DA believes that it would be improper for her to try the case, leading to more frustration for the Brooks family.
It appears that
which was a bunch of
Rashard Brooks' life didn't really matter, and that the world has moved on. But clearly that's not the case. You know, all people want is for this officer to go through the proper court proceedings.
Mayor Bottoms tonight defending her decision to fire Wolf, saying, had the immediate action not been taken, I firmly believe that the public safety crisis we experienced during that time would have been significantly worse.
Ryan Young reporting, thank you. Officer Rolfe's attorney says that his client will receive 11 months of back pay too following that board's decision.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and
there
stop
you see
and
the
come out
back.
and give my commentary. You know, to this case, let me pause this. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, so yeah, and this is why I want to show this video to you guys. Just to show how unjust this justice system is. For Black people when we're facing the justice system, it's the same old, when dealing with this justice system. So we have to realize that we're living in a country where it's ruled and overseen by by whites. So we have to realize that this justice system is not going to be fair or treat us fair as it do our counterparts. So we have to understand that this man unjustified was justified for shooting and killing a Black man who was actually running away. And we're dealing with a case 5 years later with not the Carmelo case, but that's another case that we're looking at too. But with the Ryan Hinton case, it's another case exactly almost identical. But this is a coincidence, and I want you guys to remember to name Ray, the young man that he killed, Rashard Lewis. Goes by the name of Ray also, and this bartender dude that he got into it with, his name also was Ray. So that's quite a coincidence, not a coincidence to me. It sounds like this bartender put his hands on the cop, and he filed a complaint or charges or whatnot, and called the police, but they end up arresting this Black man. That just showed you how unjust. And you have the patrons that was in the bar that's actually attending and confessing to what they saw. saw in the bar. And you mean to tell me that Ray still got arrested? You know, he looked like he was pissed off in his mug shot, you know. So I just want to come on, you know, and talk a little bit and you know, and just show you you guys how unjust this justice system is for blacks. And I want to give a shout out to Taylor Public House. You know, that was his video. I want to give him the credit for that, you know, for that Pacific video. You know, but yeah, you know, the comment section is open. I need for you guys to give me your comment. Let me know what you think about the video that you just saw. You know, let me know if you think the justice system, or how unjust do you think the justice system is for blacks, or do it work for us, you know, in certain situations, you know, because in situations like this, you know, when you have black men that's dealing with law enforcement, it's never justice for us. You never see, and even when it's clearly, you know, unjustified in certain situations, they still find their men in blue justified or are not guilty for clearly guilty acts, you know, that they commit. You know, but this man was set free from the murder and the killing of RASHARD Brooks, and was set free. And you know, in 5 years later, he's under investigation again for, you know, for this ball brawl. You know what I mean? This man should still be in jail, facing jail time, facing his time for what he did to that young man, for murdering and killing that young man. You know what I mean? So yeah, the comment section is open. Like I said, leave your comments. Let me know what you think about this situation. You know, another black man could have lost his life in that situation. I'm glad, you know, this man did not lose his life to this officer. He was still an officer, off-duty officer at that time too, you know. And you can see the audacity, you know, that these motherfuckers have. You know, the police was called out, you know, and they end up taking him to jail when it clearly stated and clearly showed that, you know, this man was the aggressor. He took the first swing, you know, and your man Ray just put them hands on him. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, you know, it's case after case. You know, I can name multiple cases where, you know, black men were just, you know, really just trying to get away, not guilty or not guilty. You do have the right to try to get away. You know, their job is try to catch you and let you be judged by a judge. You know, officers are not the judge, jury, and the executioner, you know, and these are the roles that they've been playing out here in these streets. You know what I mean? Judge, jury, and executioner, you know, and this shit has to change. You know what I mean? And these guys keep getting away with this shit, you know, and pretty soon this man is going to be facing murder charges again, you know, if they continue to let this man get away with shit like that, you know. So give me your opinion. Let me know what you think about this situation. You know, you know, and I believe if he would have murdered Ray, I believe the state of Atlanta should have been held, could have and should have been held responsible, you know, because he should have faced charges for the last man that he murdered, you know, and killed back in 2020. You know what I mean? And it's a coincidence that that both of these men names are Ray. You know, that's deep. You know, give me your opinion on that. What do you think about that situation? How deep and how odd is that? No one brought that to the brought anyone's attention to that. You know, I noticed that. I'm like, hold on, both of these guys' names are Ray, you know, and that's deep. You know, I'm glad one Ray survived this situation. You know, hopefully Ray, you know, and it sounds like his work of an employment is trying to do the right thing. You know, it sounds like they're going to try to get him out, you know, pay to get him out, pay whatever his bond is, and then, you know, try to be there for him in court when he go to court and try to prove and show, you know, that he was not the aggressor. It was the police who was the aggressor. You know, so hopefully they do the right thing like they say they were going to do, and you know, be there for this man, you know, because he wasn't doing nothing but just trying to do his job and feed himself and his family. You know what I mean? Yeah, so you know, and that's why I just wanted to show you guys that video, you know, and show you an example of how unjust, you know, the justice system is for blacks, and how most of the time it doesn't work. You know, like I said, we can name case after case, you know, like, and I'll just say the Ryan Hinton case, that was another case where, you know, you had, and it's what's so crazy, it's kind of almost ironic. This case, the Rashard Brooks case, is kind of somewhat started off and ended exactly like the you know, and no one brought that up out of all the videos that I've saw and people talked about, no one brought the how identical these cases are. The Rashard Brooks and the Carmelo Anthony, you know, they both were sleeping in a parking lot, you know, and were woken up to officers knocking on their door, you know, and they tried to, you know, get away and run away, you know. And I'm not saying that they're not wrong for doing that, you know, but it's like I said, it's not the officer's job to shoot and kill a man who's just trying to get away. You know what I mean? It's up to them to catch him and take them to jail to be held responsible in court by a judge and a jury. You know what I mean? So these cops, these police officers are taking, you know, being judged, jury, and executioner, taking that upon their own selves to, you know, to do that, to be able to punish, you know, these men right then and there on the scene, you know, and that's what's been going on for years. You know what I mean? Since pretty much since the police has been invented, you know, the police was originally put together, you know, to go out and catch the slaves, you know, but here in present time, the police are here to supposed to be to protect and serve. But do the police really protect and serve the Black communities? You know, it seems like they go out on, it seems like in the Black communities, they're the threats. You know, it seems like they're the sharks, like they're out there, you know, searching for prey, you know, in our communities. You know, and my question is too, that I want to ask is, why don't you never hear about, you know, African-American officers out in, you know, mainly white areas, you know, terrorizing those neighborhoods? You know, you only hear about the white officers terrorizing the Black communities, you know, and this shit got to stop. You know, we have to realize that the justice system here in Americans, you know, the United States of America, I should say, has not been designed for us, you know, and it shows, you know, case after case after case. You know what I mean? It never fails to show that, you know, we're living in a society that's dominated, you know, and ruled by whites. You know what I mean? So you got to ask yourself this question: why would it work for us? You know, if we're the counterparts, you know what I mean? So you got to ask yourself, you know, why do we, you know, put up so much fight, you know, and the things that we in the unwrong and the unjust that we see, you know. So we have to start realizing that, you know, we're living in a society that's ruled, you know, by whites, you know, by white America. You know what I mean? You know, so a lot of stuff that we see and that we go through, is the reason why we go through this shit. You know what I mean? Because we're living in a society that's ruled by, you know, the motherfuckers that enslaved us over 400 and some years ago. You know, and that's the truth to the fact. You know what I mean? So we have to stop acting surprised about certain situations, and we have to start, you know, handling these situations accordingly. You know what I mean? We have to stop putting ourselves, and what I mean by that is, you know, even with the Rashard Brooks case that happened 5 years ago, you know, and it matches up identical, you know, to the case that we just saw in not too long ago, you know, that ended with a not guilty verdict with the police. You know, and that shit is kind of eerie and kind of crazy, like how I'm kind of putting this shit together. You know, both of these cases were kind of identical. You had both young men that was sleeping in the car, that was woken up by the police and just really tried to get away. You know, whether they were right or wrong, it's not the police job to shoot and kill a man who's trying to get away, from the officer, for that officer to be the judge, jury, and the executioner. And that's what's kind of crazy. It kind of that's what's so crazy about both of these cases. It happened, you know, to both of these men, identical cases. You know what I mean? In both cases, you know, the jury or the judge, and I'm not going to say both cases, you know, because I don't know if this case went all the way to trial or court, you know what I mean? But I know that the Carmelo Anthony case never was even judged by a jury. You know, it was the prosecutors who decided that cop's fate. So pretty much it was them judging them own self, you know, their own men. You know what I mean? Their own, pretty much the police judging the police. You know what I mean? So they'll never find themselves guilty, you know, when judging each other. You know, so us as Blacks, we have to come up with some type of solution, you know, on how to go about, with dealing with these motherfuckers who commit these murders, especially when when we know that they're guilty. You know what I mean? Clearly, clearly the courts and the police doesn't see eye to eye with what we see. You know what I mean? That these men were murdered. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it doesn't surprise me, that this man was freed and he was able to attack, another black man, and what's so crazy, he's on paid leave, you know what I mean? And was on and actually got back paid for the years that he was off for the RASHARD Brooks case and trial. So I just want to just go over and just point out some of the same factors that were in both of these cases. It's kind of eerie and it's kind of crazy, and it's kind of crazy that some of the attorneys didn't kind of put this shit together and present this evidence, to the courts, or even just put it out there, in the atmosphere, but yeah, this man is nothing but, just pure evil, and he'll definitely get what he deserves one day, for sure, but at the end of the day, like I said, we as blacks, we have to understand that this system is not set up for us. It's really set up for us to lose. It's set up for our youth to spend a lot of tremendous times in jail. We never get fair breaks like how our counterparts do. Most of them are judged cautiously, are given breaks, or sometimes not even brought, to trial or any of that. You know what I mean? And our youths are, giving harsh sentences, punishments, sometimes even life imprisonment, sometimes even a death penalty. You know what I mean? So we have to realize that we'll never be on the same playing field as our counterparts. It'll never be the same. We'll never be judged the same, and we have to recognize that. And I'm quite sure that these lawyers that we hire, they know this and they recognize this, and we just have to come up with a different type of mindset and a different type of plan, how we approach these situations, when dealing with police officers, because they're not seeing us as equal value to how they see their people. You know what I mean? Because there's no compassion, there's no mercy for our people when we're dealing with the police, and we have to recognize this. You know what I mean? So yeah, and that's how we have to go about things, in the near future. You know what I mean? We can't expect for our people to be judged as the same as our counterparts, because it's been proven case after case that, Black lives really doesn't matter, especially when dealing with the police. You know what I mean? Because the police have no compassion, no sympathy, as you can see, and what shows the difference, how they don't have any compassion or any sympathy. And this is the number one factor. And you got to ask yourself this question. And I definitely want you guys to comment and leave this in the comment section. Why don't you see Black officers terrorizing white communities and murdering young white, just white kids and men, like how you see them murdering our women, children, and kids? You know what I mean? You'll never see that, because I think for one thing for sure is, Black officers know that they will be faced with consequences, swift consequences, if they do the same thing that, that their counterpart officers has been doing to the Black community. They know this shit. You know what I mean? So like I said, at the end of the day, we have to recognize when dealing with with these officers and just dealing with white people in general, that we're not going to be treated the same in the eyes of the law. We're not going to be treated the same in the court, in the court system. You know what I mean? Puffy is going through that right now. You know what I mean? Most of his counterparts would have probably gotten bond or bail by now. You know what I mean? But they're still, keeping him locked up and draining him monetary wise. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, this whole justice system is set up, for monetary gain of the Blacks. It gives them jobs. They made up jobs to be able to, give to their people to oversee, certain situations, like far as the justice system. There are jobs that has been invented, for their people to be able to oversee our people. You know what I mean? And we have to recognize that, and this is the justice system in and out, through the whole system, and what's so crazy, our higher up people, elite people, they know this shit, you know what I mean? And they don't do anything to try to inform, the masses of the people. They go along with the program, and continue to go along with these programs, so we have to be cautious. We have to be careful about how, when dealing with police, and dealing with this justice system, because this justice system is not built, again, for us. It was built for our counter partners. It was built for Caucasians, and it was set up for us to fail. They get jobs, when we get locked up and go to jail. There's jobs for their people. There's lawyers, you have police officers, COs, all that, off and on, probation officers, all this shit. You know what I mean? So these were jobs that were invented, that their people benefit off the off of our backs, I should say, off the negative things that they judge us by and they lock us up, about, it's mainly, our counter partners overseeing all this, all the way from the beginning to the end. You know what I mean? We're at the end of the day, you don't never really see, that many judges that's judging their own kind, in jury, mainly even the jurors. You know what I mean? It's always going to be, an offset, type thing, especially when you have when it's a white and black issue. You know what I mean? Now there'll be certain issues that 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 will work for us in the court system, that that it probably has nothing to do with a racial thing. It probably just have to do with right and wrong, that we do win. But when it has everything to do with the police system, and and just dealing with some type of racial situation, we will always not be judged the same. So I just want to come in and talk about this for a second. I was hoping a lot of people, tuned in and commented on the situation, because it's definitely a conversation worth talking about, how unjust the justice system is for blacks here in the United States. You know what I mean? So I'm pretty much I pretty much done saying what I needed to say. There was a great video with like I said, I want to give a shout out to Taylor House Publishing. That was a great video that he put up, and it showed the differences of the two, on how unjust the justice system is for blacks. So I don't have anything else to add. It's been another one. It's your boy Dam D, and I am out. Peace.